It says in the Va'al Hanisim prayer, that the purpose of the Greeks' war against us was lahashkicham Torasecha, to make us forget the Torah. So here we are on Hanukkah, learning Torah, remembering Torah. Nothing better than that.
So we can forget the Greeks.
So we can forget what?
The Greeks.
The Greeks, exactly. You know why we eat donuts on Hanukkah? Why do we eat donuts on Hanukkah?
Oil.
The oil, because the Greeks were very into fashion and culture and looks and exercise. So we eat donuts to make sure we don't look like them. That's Hilchos Geirushin Perek Sheni, the laws of divorce, chapter 2. Cliffhanger. At the end of this chapter, the very end, we're going to have probably one of the most important laws in all of the entire Rambam. The Rebbe quoted this law the most often, hundreds of times, during his talks. It's going to be a very, very critical, this particular chapter, Halacha Chaf, number 20, the final one. So look forward to it, okay? Right. The main topic, though, of the chapter is shlichut, agency in writing a divorce. When a man writes a divorce to his wife, we're going to see, there's no obligation for he himself to write it. There's also no obligation for he himself to deliver it. He can appoint an agent for both parts, both for the writing and for the delivering. Today we're going to be worried about or discussing agency in writing. Later on is going to come about the agency in delivering the get. Today we're occupied in composing the get, how the agency works. And the Rambam introduces it with the following principle. Halacha Aleph, Zeh shenemar b'Torah. When it says in the Torah, V'kasav lo sefer krisus v'nosan biyada, that the husband should write a bill of divorce and put it in her hand, the truth is, Echad HaKosev biyadai oisha amar la'acher lichtev loi. It holds validity whether you write it in your own hand or you tell somebody else to write the get. Ve'echad hanoisen biyadai oisha amar la'acher litin la. Same with delivery. You can give it in her hand yourself or you can tell somebody else to give it to her. The word he writes and he gives isn't essential that you are the one that write it and give it. Loi nemar v'kasav, the only reason the Torah words it in the expression of writing is to let us know that the only way to divorce a woman is with a written document. And the word he should give it is there to exclude that she shouldn't take it on her own. Yesterday we learned, it was a bit of a rush, yesterday we learned all the 10 conditions that are biblically essential for a divorce to be valid. One of them has to be written. Second, she has to take it from the husband's hand, not from the floor, for example. That's why it says he writes and he gives. Not that he has to write and he has to give, but that the word writing is the operative word and the word giving is the operative word. Who does it doesn't matter so much. And therefore, the Rambam moves on to the laws of getting agents to write a get. Amar lishnayim halacha beis, if a person tells two people, kisvu get v'chismu utnu liishti, write a divorce, sign it, and give it to my wife. Hare'elu kaisvin v'chaismin v'naisnin la. They do all three stages. They write, they sign, and they give it. And simultaneously they serve as his agents and as the witnesses. Because we saw yesterday, like a marriage, a divorce can only be delivered in the presence of witnesses. So these two people become the witnesses and they become the agents. This is a side problem that the Shulchan Aruch discusses. Can a scribe sign a get? Typically we say that the person who writes the get cannot sign it. Here he's asking the same two guys to write it and to sign it. So the commentaries discuss if the Rambam means that it's only in this case, or even in general it works, but the point that Rambam is trying to communicate is that you can make an agent to write and sign the get.
So you'll have two gets.
Huh?
So have two.
No, you'll have one, because the two of them will together, either write it, one guy will write it. They're both going to oversee that process.
Is he obligated to send immediately the money of the ketubah?
Typically, yeah.
With the Geirushin?
It could be it could be the next day, but
Okay.
that's when the obligation begins, yeah. The Chenim Amar LaSeifer, same thing if he told one guy, the scribe, the local scribe, Ksovli get liishti, please write me a divorce for my wife. Amar la'edim lachtem, and you tell two other people to sign the get. That also works. Kaisvim, v'chaismim, v'naisnim lay, the scribe should write it, the witnesses should sign it, and give it to him, to the husband that is. V'hu megarish by b'chaleis sheyirtzeh, and he can divorce with it whenever he wants. This is a very important line because yesterday we saw that a predated get is invalid. Here, it would seem to be that they're going to write the date today, going to give it to him, he's going to give it whenever he wants, it's going to be a predated divorce. So the commentaries explain there's a difference between predating it on the day that you write it and predating it to the day that you give it. If today is Monday and we write a divorce if we write on it that it's Sunday, that's a predated get. But if I write Monday, even if I give the get in 2 months, that's not predated because it was written with the proper date when it was written. Verstehst? That's what it means over here. They write the divorce, they give it to the guy, he can use it whenever he wants. Halacha Gimel, the kaisvin get la'ish, afal pisha ein ishta imay. If a guy walks into court asking for a divorce, we can write it for him, even if his wife is not with him. Provided that the witnesses and the scribe both know who they're dealing with. They have to know who the guy is, they have to know who his wife is, even if she's not here. What if there were in the same place living 2 people who their names were the same and their wives' names were the same? Imagine Crown Heights. Every guy's name is Menachem Mendel, his wife's name is Chayamushka. You know how it goes. So there's 100 couples with the same names and wife's names, and one guy comes to court and says, write me a divorce for my wife. So then, if the 2 people are the same names and their wives' names, Ein megarish echad mehem ela b'maimed chaverei. Neither one can give a divorce unless his friend, the other guy, is there. Shema yichtev get, because otherwise, Mr. Menachem Mendel A is going to go into court, write a get, v'yoylichai le'eshas chaverei v'yigarshena olav, and he's going to bring the divorce to his friend's wife. Doesn't matter. You can be an agent. You can be a shliach. You can be an agent for a get. So you're going to give her the divorce.
He doesn't marry her.
I know, but any man can be hold on. Any man can be an agent for somebody else.
Yeah.
So if you're married, you can tell me to give a divorce to your wife.
Yeah.
So you understand? Menachem Mendel A wants to get back at his friend, and he knows that his friend has a wife with the same name as him, so he gets the divorce written up for his friend's wife, gives it to her, says, "Oh, your husband asked me to give this to you." You understand? And then she thinks she's divorced, and that's a big problem.
No, that's a
Huh?
problem. Question if she's divorced, she's not divorced.
She cannot. Biblically, a woman can be divorced even against her will. Today, you're right. No, today we have a chayrim. Oh, yes, a good question. In the get, you write the name of the man and the father. So the commentaries explain that it's talking about a case where your name is the same and your father's name is the same. When I was in high school, there was a Shabbos one time. We were all in yeshiva for Shabbos, and there were 7 Menachem Mendel ben Yosef Yitzchaks in the yeshiva. So they gave every one of them an aliyah. They gave each one an aliyah. So what do you do in that case? You have to call by the grandfather. You have to say Menachem Mendel ben Yosef Yitzchak ben David or whatever it is. But they had fun doing for all 7. They gave them all the aliyahs. I think the last guy's only name was Yosef, not Yosef Yitzchak, the father's name. So it was a little different. Well, they had a Kohen, they had a Levi, they had everybody. Yeah. So you're right. We're talking about a case where all the names are the same. But if all the names are the same, you have to be very careful. Only both men have to be present in order for the divorce to be given. Otherwise, one of them might take advantage of the other guy's wife.
So what happened if it's really happened? So she thinks, of course, she is divorced. It could create a problem.
Huge problems.
It's huge problem. But the divorce.
No, exactly. That's the whole problem. She'll think she's divorced. She might go marry somebody else. They'll have kids, and they'll be, but not actually divorced. She's still married. That's the usual principle. Halacha dalid ubishas hasakana, in a time of danger, which means, as the commentaries explain, the husband is in danger of dying, and he knows that if he dies, and let's say it's a case where the wife is childless, she's going to now be subject to yibum. So I have to marry the dead guy's brother. It's going to be a whole complicated case. He says, you know what, let me just divorce her before I die. So if it's time of danger, you can write and give a divorce, even if you don't recognize exactly the identity of the guy and his wife. You can't really see them right now. Maybe he looks very sick, whatever it is. The woman must pay for the scribe's fee. The Talmud says we were worried that a husband might not have the money and he's going to delay the get and keep his wife trapped in a marriage that she doesn't want to be in. So you know what? You pay for it. The women know how to come up with rainy day funds very quickly, and she'll pay for the scribe, and the divorce will go into effect. Halacha hey. In any of these cases where a husband is appointing people to write a get for him, the husband himself must deliver the instruction to the scribe. He says, you write, and to the witnesses, you sign. And therefore, for example, let's say the court or 2 guys came over to a guy and they said, Nichtev get li ishtecha, should we write a divorce for your wife? We can see the marriage is going sour. Should we intervene? And he tells them, Kisvu, yeah, write a divorce. And the Kesef Mishnah adds here, it should say also v'chismu. Write and sign. V'kosvu hein atzman v'chasmu bay. And they went ahead and they wrote the get, and they signed it. Harei kosher, that's kosher, because they consulted him and he gave the instruction. Avolim amru heim lasofer v'kasav v'la'edim v'chasmu. But if the court then went ahead and told somebody else to be the scribe, or somebody else to go sign, even if they returned the get in its completed state to the husband, the chazar v'nasam get zeli ishtei b'fnei edim, and he gave the get to his wife. While witness is watching, harei zeh get batel. That's a void, a null and void divorce. Shaharei kasvei misha lo amar lehabal lekasvei. Because the person who wrote it was somebody who the husband didn't instruct to write it. The husband told the court to write it, and the court told somebody else to write it. The husband has to give the instruction to describe himself. Halacha vav amar lishnayim lishleisha. What if he told 2 or 3 people to tell somebody else to write it? Imru lesofer v'yichtiv get leishti. V'imru le'edim v'yachteimu. Tell the scribe to write a divorce for my wife. Tell the witnesses to sign. V'amru lesofer v'kasav le'edim v'chasma. They indeed followed. They told the scribe to write it, told the witnesses to sign it. So here, the instruction was followed because he gave the instruction to give the instruction. Or he told 2 people, Imru lasefer v'yichtiv get leishti. Ve'atem chasaymu, tell a scribe to write a divorce to my wife, and you guys sign. The point is, these are all variations of the same idea where he gave the instruction, but the instruction wasn't directly to write it. Harei get puzzle. This is an invalid or a disqualified get. Notice the difference. Last halacha he said get batel, null and void. Here he says puzzle, disqualified. We'll see in a moment what the difference is. You have to be very deliberate about this before you decide what happens here. It's get batel. It's very close to being a void get. It's disqualified, but it might even be void. What's the difference between disqualified and void? And this halacha we should remember from now for the next 2 weeks, because it's going to come up again and again and again. The difference between the 2 words, pasul and batel, means shekol makom shenemar b'chibur zeh, baget. Any time in this entire work, that means that I'm saying in all the 14 books of the Rambam, if I ever use the word about a get, shehu batel, that it's void, hu batel min ha-Torah. Void means biblically disqualified. Ubechol makom shenemar pasul, if I use the term pasul, invalidated or disqualified, hu pasul midivrei seifrim, it's only rabbinically disqualified. Very, very important distinction. You have to know if it's void biblically or only disqualified rabbinically. That's on the screen. Pasul, batel. Those words, so from now on, whenever we see the word get pasul, rabbinical. Get batel, biblical. Halacha ches, returning now to the laws of agency. Habal shehevi get biyadei chasum. Sorry. A husband brings a divorce in his hand, signed. It's already signed. The Amar, and then he says, tu get zeli ishti. Goes over to 2 guys, says, give this divorce to my wife. They should give it to her. They don't have to suspect maybe he had some illegal issues in writing the get. It's here, it's signed, give it. What if you did instruct people to write a divorce, to sign it, to give it to your wife? They carried out all your instructions, written, signed, given. And after the giving, it turns out there's a problematic divorce, either biblically or rabbinically. They must rewrite the get even 100 times get kosher, until she gets hold of a kosher get. Because we assume if the husband said, give my wife a divorce, he meant give her a kosher divorce. You made a problem, fix the problem. Halacha tes, amar lehem habal. What if the husband told these witnesses or these people, kisvu v'chismu utnu l'shliach l'haylichla, write a divorce, sign the divorce, and hand it off to this guy who's going to be the agent. So notice here, you never asked these people to actually give the divorce. You said give it to an agent. So they're only appointed to write up the get. It's a very limited agency. The kasvu v'chasmu, the nasnu l'shliach, they wrote it, they signed it, they gave it to the guy, to the agent. The nimtza haget batel le'pasul. And at this point, you discover that the get is problematic, biblically or rabbinically. Ein kaisvim acher. Here they cannot write another get. Ad she'yimolchu babal, till they consult with the husband. Shaharei lo asay some shluchim leGeirushin. He never made them agents to actually hand over the divorce. Maybe all he wanted was write up a divorce and give it to the agent. No other action should remain for them. They did their job. They wrote, they gave it. Lefichach la yichtavu acher, therefore they cannot write another divorce till they consult with the husband again. V'im kasvu get acher kasha. What if they didn't consult? They took the matters into their own hands. They wrote a kosher divorce. Unasanu lashliach unasan elah, handed off to the agent who handed it off to the woman. Harezu safik migurashes. This is a doubtful divorce because they took matters into their own hands. He only gave them one instruction: write and give to the agent. They wrote a problematic one and then rewrote it. So now we're in doubt. Halacha Yud. Let's talk about the language that the husband uses when he employs these agents. A person tells two people, or more than two people, Kisvu get utnuli ishti. Write a divorce and give it to my wife. Or he says gorshuha, divorce her. It's another way of saying divorce in Hebrew. Shalchuha, send her away. He uses the biblical term, v'shilchan mi beito. Shavkuha, release her. Tarchuha, cut her off. These are Aramaic terms for divorce. Kisvu igeres utnula. Write her a letter and give it to her. Igeres was known to be a divorce. So in all these cases, the instruction is write a kosher divorce and give it to her. Because again, these are all languages of proper divorce. Amar lehem, what if he tells them patruha, dismiss her, parnasuha, give her sustenance, asula kadas, do what she deserves, asula kanimus, do like the manners should be, asula karoi, do what's proper to her, le amar klum. This instruction means nothing. If they do go and write a divorce, it's totally void. Because these words mean nothing. These words don't mean divorce at all. Amar lahem, what if he told them some middle ground words? Haitziuha, get her out. Izvuha, let her go. Hatiruha, permit her to remarry. Hanichuha, let her be. Ha'iluha, help her. Hareza safek imashma miles elu Geirushin inyan acher. It's a doubt what these words mean. Divorce or maybe something else. Lefichach ein kaisel. Therefore, we don't write a divorce in this case. If you do write a divorce, it's a doubtful divorce because, again, we don't know for sure that his intent was for divorce. Halacha Yud Beis. Ha'omer kisvu get liishti. A person says, write a divorce for my wife. Hare'elu kaisvin v'chaismin v'neisnin labal b'yadai. Those words, write a divorce for my wife, does not mean give it to her. It means write it, sign it, and give it back to the husband. They cannot give it to the wife unless he says, give it to her. If they gave it to her, it's not effective. That wasn't his agency. He never said, bring about the divorce. He said, write it up. When do we say that? If he's a regular healthy guy. Regular healthy guy, we assume he means give me the divorce and I'll take care of it when it's time. But if a man is terminally, dangerously ill, somebody who a sickness jumped upon him and it became super severe very fast. Remember in the days of COVID? It happened in a matter of hours. Person catches it, boom, he's on a respirator, you don't know what's happening. Or somebody going out to the guillotine. Oops, where's my guillotine picture? Here's my guillotine picture. He's going to the guillotine. Afilu al iske mammon, even over monetary matters. In which case, the Gentiles who usually had the authority weren't always so particular. You didn't know if they were going to actually kill him. Yetze Bakila really means going out in chains. So you don't know if he's actually going to the guillotine. Maybe it's an inaccurate depiction. The point is, very, very big chance he's going to die. Or somebody going out to sea, or with a travel caravan. The Omar, on his way out, he says, Kisvu get li ishti. Write a divorce for my wife. So here, because the chances are he's not coming back, they should actually write, sign, and give it to her. Because it's obvious that he meant, when he said write, he meant write and give. Because, again, he wants to release his wife from any potential problems, so he for sure means give it to her. Yud Gimel, Bari Sha'amar. What if a completely healthy man says, Kisvu get li ishti, write a divorce for my wife? Which again means they shouldn't give it to her, only write it. But they wrote it, signed it, and gave it to her. And then the next moment he commits suicide. He threw himself off a roof or into an ocean. Retroactively, we now reveal that his intention was to give it to her. Hareza get kosher, it's a kosher get, because probably he knew he was going to do this. And the instruction was to fully give her the get. But if he went to a roof and didn't commit suicide, the wind blew him off and he died, no, that's not a divorce. You should never have given it to her. He meant to give it to him. He wasn't planning to die, and so the divorce is invalid. Safek hipilatzme safek dechafatu aruach. What if you're not sure if he committed suicide or the wind blew him off? How is a get? By default, it's considered to be a divorce. Till you know for sure that it was the wind that pushed him off and he wasn't suicidal. Similarly, if somebody's in a pit, and he screams, anybody who hears my voice, please, write a divorce for my wife. Even though in his instruction, all he said was write, the witnesses should write it and give it to her. As long as they know him. In the commentaries say he has to scream out his name, his father's name, his wife's name, where he lives. As long as he can provide that information, you follow him. Even if they raised him out from the pit and they couldn't tell his identity, his face was so badly injured. They couldn't see who he was, but they heard his voice and they recognized his voice. It's kosher. Because this situation is like a dangerous time, where you can write and give a get even if you don't recognize the facial features. Similarly, if somebody was wounded so severely that he cannot survive, maybe most of his pipes were slaughtered, so he's for sure about to die. And he hints with his body language, write a divorce for my wife. Whoever sees that should write and deliver the get. Right now he's alive. His instruction is valid. Even though he will surely die, now he's alive. He gave a valid instruction, follow it. Somebody was being possessed by an evil spirit. And when the episode began, the sickness began, he said, Kisvu get li ishti, write a divorce for my wife, lo yamar klum. It's not considered anything. Because we consider his mind not to be calm, not to be settled. Same thing if a person is so intoxicated, like Lot, he would be unaware if his relative came to him, like Lot was. He's so drunk. Same thing. Anything he says is invalid. But if he didn't reach that level yet, then it's a doubt. Because we don't know if he's that drunk or he's not that drunk. Is he serious or not serious?
So his wife is safek meguleshet now?
No, they shouldn't deliver the divorce. I'm saying, yeah, if they do, then it's a doubt, yeah. Amar kishahu bari, but what if this guy who gets these episodes, while he was healthy, he said, Kisvu tnu get li ishti, write and give a divorce to my wife. The achar kach nivas. And then he went into his episode of being possessed. Mamtinin ad sheyavri v'kaisvin. So the instruction is valid. Just wait till the episode is over, he gets healthy again, and then write and give the divorce. You don't have to go ask him again after he gets healthy, because he was healthy when he gave the instruction. If they write and give the divorce before he gets healthy while he's still in the episode or he's a puzzle, it's rabbinically disqualified. Somebody became mute, but his mind is sound. And they asked him, shall we write a divorce for your wife? And he nodded his head. We must check him in 3 ways, which would require different answers. In other words, they ask him, should we do a divorce? And then he says, should we not write a divorce? In other words, he has to answer yes and no in different ways. If he answered the no questions with a proper no, and the yes questions with a proper yes, then they should write it and give the divorce. This is used even today, by the way. People become mute, people undergo a trauma. We can use this method of halachically ascertaining what their opinion is. We must check him very well, because perhaps he lost his mind. But if you check him well and he's always answering correctly, follow his instruction. If he writes with his handwriting, he writes a note. Write and give a divorce to my wife. They should write it and give it. If his mind was of sound mind. Because a mute guy isn't like a deaf mute. Deaf mute is considered to be totally lost his mind. A mute is okay. Yud Zayin. Somebody got married when he was competent, sound mind. Then he becomes a deaf mute. Or he becomes mentally unstable. He can never divorce his wife till he gets healthy. We don't rely on hints given by a deaf mute or on his handwriting. Even if he's completely calm and has a sound mind. But if he got married when he was deaf mute, then he can divorce using hints. Because the whole marriage isn't the biblical marriage as we've explained. So the same way he married her with hints, he can divorce her with hints. If a man betroths a minor girl through her father, and he divorces her while she's still a minor, the father should be the agent to receive the divorce. And once the divorce reaches the father's hand, she is divorced. If he divorced her after reaching the first stage of puberty, here both her and her father can be the receivers. Either one gets the divorce, she's divorced. A woman who is in this stage, of first stage of puberty, and she's betrothed, she cannot make an agent to receive the get if her father is still alive, because her father holds equal jurisdiction during that time. The father, though, since he holds the major jurisdiction, he could make an agent to receive the divorce on behalf of his daughter, whether she's a minor or in the first stage of puberty. Yutes. If a father betroths a girl while she's a minor and then he dies. If the girl's old enough where she can tell the difference between a divorce and something else, she can receive her own divorce, and when she receives it, the divorce goes into effect. But if not, she cannot get divorced until she's old enough to tell the difference between a divorce and something else. And if he did divorce her during this time period, she's not divorced. Halacha Chaf. Here we go. The final halacha that I told you before is one of the primary sources of the Rebbe in Jewish law about the purity of a Jew. Misha hadin noisin. Shekoife noisin legarish as ishtay v'leratza legarish. If the law demanded, for whatever reason, that somebody should divorce his wife by force, and he didn't want to, the court of the Jewish people at any time, any place, can take the liberty to hit the guy, beat him up, till he says, I want to give the get. And write it. Who get kosher, and it's a kosher get, even though it was written seemingly under duress. Even if Gentiles were beating you up, and they were saying, do what the Jews are telling you to do. And they forced that Jew by the hands of Gentiles until he divorced. Harei kosher, then it's a kosher get. If the Gentiles on their own forced him, beat him up till he gave the get, since by law he's required to give the get, harei get possible, it's at least rabbinically disqualified, even if not fully kosher. But if a Jew put the pressure on, it's mamish kosher. The Lama Le Batel Get Zeh says the Rambam a huge question. Why isn't the divorce cancelled? Sharihu Anus Ben Biad Akum Ben Biad Yisrael is being forced by the hands of a Gentile, by the hands of a Jew. The very first condition of a divorce is that a husband has to divorce only by his will. Here he's being forced. Says the Rambam, listen to this. She'ein oimrin anus. Halachically, we don't use the term forced. Ela lemisha nilchatz v'nidchak laser davar she'ein mechuya b'min HaTorah. Only if somebody was forced or pressured to do something which he's not obligated to do biblically. Somebody who's beat up till he sells or makes a gift, there it's invalid because you're forced. But if a Jew is overpowered by his own evil inclination, levatel mitzvah elasis avera, to not do a mitzvah or to do an avera, v'huka ad she'asa davar shechayav la'asosei, and he was beat up till he was moved back to the proper path to do what he's supposed to do, or distanced from not doing what he wasn't supposed to do. That's not called forced. The opposite. He forced himself the other way, not wanting to do the mitzvah. That's the force. Therefore, this person who doesn't want to give the divorce and he's supposed to, since of course every Jew wants to be Jewish, And he really wants to do all the mitzvahs, and he really wants to be far away from averas. It's only his evil inclination that overpowered him. So, if you remove the problem, it's all good. If he was beat up till his yetzer hara got weakened, and he says, I want to, that statement of I want to, that's the Jew's real want. At this point, he has divorced by his own will. Because the Jew's innermost will is to stay in touch with what Hashem wants. Alter Rebbe used to say, Ayid niter vilu niter ken. Zayin upgrissen von elikus. A Jew doesn't want to and he isn't able to be torn away from godliness. At our core, everyone wants to do what Hashem wants. And the beat up is only to bring out what we truly want. But if the law did not dictate that you should get a divorce, you weren't supposed to be forced out of the marriage. And the court made a mistake. Or they were, plain people, they were unlearned people. And they forced the guy till he gave a get, harez the get puzzle. Then it's a disqualified get. They shouldn't have done that. Still, since it was Jews who beat him up, he should actually give a get again, a proper one. If it was Gentiles who forced him to go against the Torah and divorce, ein a get that isn't a divorce. Even though he said after the beating, I want to, he gets agents of Jews to write him and sign him a get. Since the law doesn't demand that he divorces, and it was the guy who forced him, ein a get that isn't a divorce. But if he was supposed to give a divorce and the Jews forced him, that's okay. The Rebbe would always connect us to so many things. Every Jew at his core, even when he looks like he's sinning, it looks like he's going against the Torah, really, really deep inside, the fire is burning within him. And that's the message of Hanukkah. What did they find in the temple? One little jug of oil. Chassidus says, Pach echad shel shemen, that's the oil inside the Jew. The pure oil, the part of him that never can get contaminated. No Greeks can destroy it. No idol worship can make it dirty. All you have to do is bring it out. That's lighting the Hanukkah candles. L'chaim.